Ladies and gentlemen, there's a reason why so many people work hard, do everything right, and still feel like they're losing at life. It's not because they lack effort. It's because they've misunderstood what it really means to win. In this journey, we're going to unlearn the old definitions of success and uncover a deeper, lasting kind of victory, the kind that transforms your reality from the inside out. This is the art of winning, not as the world defines it, but as your soul demands it. Let's discover what's really holding you back and how to rise beyond it. The illusion most people live under is that winning is something out there. It's a destination, a trophy, a number in a bank account, and applause from others that confirms you did something right. So we chase. We chase validation, recognition, security, and admiration, hoping that somewhere at the end of that road we'll finally feel like a winner. But life has a different rhythm. The more you chase things outside of you, the more you lose the connection to what's already alive inside of you. The real victory doesn't come when others cheer for you. It begins the moment you understand that nothing out there can define your worth unless you first claim it from within. To understand the art of winning, you must turn inward. You have to realize that the thoughts you entertain, the beliefs you hold, and the emotions you dwell in every day are not passive. They're creative. They're the raw material shaping the outcome of your entire life. When you feel like you're losing, when you feel like you're not enough, when you find yourself comparing, doubting, resenting, it's not because the world is broken. It's because your inner dialogue has become disconnected from the truth of who you are. You can have all the external success in the world and still feel empty. Why? Because success without self-awareness is just decoration around a hollow space. But when you become rooted in your own essence, when you no longer need permission to feel worthy, you step into a power that doesn't waver when circumstances do. You see, real winners aren't people who have never lost. Real winners are those who no longer let external losses determine their internal state. They realize that failure is an illusion when you're committed to growth. They know that rejection can't touch you unless you agree with it. They don't seek approval to act. They act because it's who they are. And that shift, moving from the need to prove to the need to express, is where the internal game is won. This isn't about ego. This isn't about walking around pretending to be superior. In fact, true inner victory dissolves the need to compare at all. Because once you understand your inherent value, you no longer measure yourself by someone else's ruler. You begin to see others not as competition, but as reflections of the same divine potential. The battle ends. The struggle quiets. You begin to understand that the loudest wins are often silent. The peace you feel in your own heart when you wake up and know you're living in alignment with your highest truth. People often think they need to earn a sense of being a winner. But the truth is, the moment you begin to own your thoughts, the moment you take responsibility for your emotions instead of blaming the world, the moment you recognize that you don't need to chase to be enough, that's the moment you win. You've just redefined the game. And in doing so, you've stepped into a life where external conditions no longer hold you hostage. You become free, and in that freedom, you begin to create not from fear or scarcity, but from inspiration, creativity, and love. This doesn't mean you stop setting goals or striving for more. It means that your striving becomes joyful instead of desperate. It means your efforts arise from a full cup, not an empty one. You're no longer running away from feelings of inadequacy. You're moving forward because you're already complete, and now you're simply expressing that wholeness through action. Every step becomes an extension of who you are, not a desperate plea for who you want to be seen as. That's the real transformation. That's where the win begins. What's powerful is this: the world starts to mirror that internal shift. Opportunities come not because you begged for them, but because you became a magnet for them. People respond to your energy differently. You no longer hustle for your worth, you radiate it, and that radiance can't be faked. It's not a smile you wear for others to believe in you, it's the light that comes when you finally believe in yourself. There's a certain serenity in this space. It's not loud, it's not boastful, but it's unshakable, because once you win the inner war, the war between who you really are and who you've been told to be, no outer battle can defeat you. The world might still test you, circumstances may still shift, but you stop reacting to them like a victim. You start responding to them like a creator. That shift is everything. Not just mindset, it's identity. You're no longer someone trying to win, you are someone who is winning simply because you've returned to yourself. There is a quiet force that begins to work in your favor the moment you stop obsessing over how everything turns out. So many people live in a constant state of tension, trying to predict, control, and force outcomes in their lives. They wake up burdened by expectations measured by timelines, chasing an ideal that always seems one step out of reach. And they call this ambition. But what they don't realize is that the moment they tie their sense of fulfillment to a specific outcome, they place their peace in the hands of uncertainty. They become prisoners of a future that hasn't even arrived. And in doing so, they miss the power of presence. The art of winning is never about strangling life into submission. It's about relaxing into your deeper intention and allowing life to unfold through you rather than trying to bend it to your will. Detachment isn't indifference. It's the opposite. It's full engagement in the present moment, paired with complete trust in the process. It's knowing why you do what you do without needing a guarantee for how it's going to turn out. That kind of detachment doesn't make you passive. It makes you powerful, because now your energy isn't scattered across 1,000 imagined futures. It's focused, it's pure, and that clarity has the ability to move mountains. When you attach yourself to outcomes, you limit what life can give you. You begin to act not from inspiration, but from desperation. Every move becomes strategic, every word calculated. Every step weighed against the question, will this get me what I want? But the truth is, the things you chase out of fear rarely bring satisfaction. Even when you get them, the joy is temporary, because the real hunger was never about the thing, it was about the feeling you hoped the thing would give you. And when that feeling fades, you're left with the same emptiness you started with. But something extraordinary happens when you shift your attention from outcome to purpose. Suddenly, your actions are no longer transactions with the future. They're expressions of your present truth. You do what you do, not because of what you hope to get, but because it's a reflection of who you are. You speak not to impress, but to connect. You move not to compete, but to create. And in that space, results begin to take care of themselves, not because you're not working, but because you're working from a different level of consciousness. Purpose brings peace. It quiets the noise of needing to prove yourself. It dissolves the fear of failure. When you align with purpose, you realize that nothing is wasted. Even setbacks become sacred because they shape you in ways success never could. You stop labeling moments as good or bad and begin to see all of it as part of a divine unfolding that is moving you, refining you, and preparing you for something greater than you imagine. It's not that the outcome doesn't matter, it's that the outcome doesn't own you. You still set goals, you still have dreams, but they no longer possess your sense of self. You don't fall apart when things don't go your way. You don't spiral into self-doubt when the door closes, because you've trained your inner eye to see what's beyond the door. You've learned to trust that when something doesn't work out, it's not the end, it's redirection. And that trust becomes your compass. Every great creator, every soul that ever made an impact, reached a moment where they had to let go of results. They had to act without applause. They had to stay committed to their calling, even when nothing seemed to be working. And it was in that surrender, in that unwavering dedication to purpose over outcome, that their breakthrough happened. Because purpose has a frequency. And when you operate at that frequency long enough, the world eventually aligns. Not always how or when you expect, but always in the way your growth needs. This is the paradox of winning. The less you need the outcome, the more powerful you become in shaping it. The moment you stop clinging, you create space for something deeper to move through you. Inspiration begins to replace fear. Joy returns to the process. You no longer wait to feel like a winner after the result. You walk like one now because your sense of fulfillment is rooted in the integrity of your action, not in the reward it may or may not bring. Life responds not just to your effort, but to the energy behind it. When you work from fear, you attract resistance. When you move from alignment, you attract flow. And flow is where the magic lives. Not because everything is easy, but because everything feels right. When you detach from the outcome, you don't lose your power. You remember where it really comes from. It comes from being true to yourself in the moment you're in, trusting that whatever comes next is exactly what needs to come next for your evolution, your expansion, your deeper becoming. There's a conditioning that runs deep in so many of us. The belief that life only yields its rewards when you push hard enough, fight long enough, hustle endlessly without pause. We're taught that forcing outcomes, grinding nonstop, and overriding our own inner signals is the only way to succeed. And for a while, it might seem like that's true. You push and things move. You grind and results appear. But beneath that surface, something slowly erodes. Your joy fades. Your energy drains. You begin to lose touch with the very reason you started. Because when you live by force, you create tension. And that tension eventually pulls you further away from your true path. There's another way. One that doesn't get taught in schools or praised in highlight reels. It's quieter, more subtle, but infinitely more powerful. It's called flow. It's the state you enter when your actions are no longer driven by fear or need, but by alignment. It's not laziness, it's not passivity. Flow doesn't mean you stop moving. It means you stop pushing against yourself. You start listening to the rhythm of your own soul. The guidance that comes not from the noise of the world, but from the stillness inside. You begin to act in harmony with who you really are, instead of in resistance to what you think you're supposed to be. The moment you stop fighting for your place and start flowing with your nature, everything changes. Force operates on the assumption that life is a battle to be won. Flow understands that life is a current to be trusted. Force says you have to compete. Flow knows there's room for everyone when you operate from your own lane. When you're in flow, your efforts are no longer filled with tension. They're infused with ease, not because the work is easy, but because your energy is clean. You're not carrying the weight of pretense or trying to meet someone else's expectations. You're simply moving from a place of truth. This shift requires something radical. Trust. Trust in timing, trust in the unseen, trust in the value of your authentic path. Force needs immediate feedback. It needs proof. It needs to see results right now to feel secure. Flow doesn't. Flow moves from knowing, and that knowing isn't always logical. It doesn't always make sense to others. But deep down you recognize it. It feels like peace, even when things are uncertain. It feels like clarity, even when the details are still forming. And that feeling is what guides you to the right opportunities, people, and moments. Not because you chased them, but because you became aligned with them. In force, you struggle. You try to outthink life, manipulate timelines, and outwork your self-doubt. You hold your breath, hoping things will fall into place. But in flow you breathe, you begin to understand that your worth isn't on trial, that you don't need to prove your value with exhaustion. Flow honors the natural seasons of growth. It knows when to move and when to pause, when to speak and when to listen. And in that balance, you find a different kind of power. Not the power to dominate, but the power to create with grace. Some of the most profound breakthroughs don't come from struggle. They come when you finally let go of how it's supposed to be and allow what wants to emerge through you. In those moments, inspiration replaces force. You stop grinding and start creating. You stop fixing and start evolving. And what you produce from that state carries a different frequency. People feel it. Life responds to it, not because you forced it into place, but because you allowed it to unfold. There's wisdom in listening to what energizes you and what drains you. When your efforts constantly feel heavy, resistant, filled with dread, it's not always a sign to push harder. Sometimes it's a sign that you're out of alignment, that your soul is asking for something different, that your next level won't come from more pressure, but from more surrender, that maybe the thing you're trying to force isn't what you truly want. It's just what you've been taught to want. And in realizing that, you free yourself from the grind that leads nowhere and step into a flow that carries you to where you were meant to be. Flow is not a shortcut. It's not about doing less for the sake of doing less. It's about doing what matters with full presence and clear intention. When you operate from this space, you no longer chase the clock or compete with others. You tap into a rhythm that's timeless. A rhythm that honors your nature, magnifies your gifts, and brings a sense of fulfillment no amount of external success can replicate. Because now, you're no longer moving just to get somewhere. You're moving because it feels right. Because you've remembered that the path itself can be the reward. And when you live like that, you don't just win. You become someone who doesn't need to. In a world obsessed with measuring, tracking, comparing, and posting, it's easy to forget why you started. You see others winning, or so it seems, and you begin to question your own pace. You start to evaluate your worth based on metrics that were never meant to define you. The scoreboard becomes your mirror. The number of followers, the size of your paycheck, the titles next to your name, all of it starts to overshadow the one thing that truly matters, the journey, the quiet, unglamorous, deeply personal road that no one sees. That road, not the scoreboard, is where transformation happens. That's where the real art of winning takes root. Not in what the world acknowledges, but in what you live through and learn from along the way. When you fixate on the scoreboard, you start to live from the outside in. Every decision becomes strategic. Every move is made to impress. You lose touch with your own rhythm and begin dancing to the beat of someone else's drum. But when you shift your gaze inward and begin to honor the journey, something changes. You start to realize that progress isn't always linear, that the path to anything worthwhile is rarely a straight line. You begin to appreciate the detours, the delays, the lessons that only struggle can teach. You stop asking, how fast am I going, and begin asking, how deeply am I growing? Because the truth is, the scoreboard will never tell the whole story. It will never show the nights you didn't quit when everything in you wanted to. It will never reflect the inner battles you overcame just to keep going. It will never capture the courage it took to believe in yourself when no one else did. There's an elegance in learning to fall in love with the process. It's not about denying your goals. It's about detaching your identity from the finish line. Because if you can only feel proud of yourself when you win by the world's standards, you'll never feel proud for long. The target always moves. The applause always fades. But when you begin to find joy in the very act of becoming, you create a well of motivation that doesn't depend on results. You begin to see each day as an opportunity to grow stronger, clearer, more aligned, not because someone is watching, but because you've chosen to be present for your own evolution. The journey teaches you things the scoreboard never can. It teaches you resilience, not just in the face of failure, but in the face of silence. Those stretches of time when it feels like nothing is happening and yet you keep showing up. It teaches you humility, not by breaking you, but by inviting you to let go of the need to be seen as great. It teaches you how to listen to your body, to your intuition, to that subtle voice that doesn't scream for attention but knows exactly what you need. And it teaches you how to lead yourself, especially when the path isn't clear and the next step isn't obvious. Some of the most meaningful victories in life are invisible. They don't come with a spotlight. They don't get shared on social media. They happen in quiet moments. When you forgive yourself, when you show up even though you're afraid, when you choose love over ego, when you finally stop running from your own reflection. These are not the wins that make headlines, but they are the ones that build character. And it's character, not applause, that sustains you when life tests your resolve. We live in a culture that rushes to outcomes. We celebrate the end, not the middle, but the middle is where life actually happens. That's where the shaping takes place. That's where you learn to trust the timing of your life and let go of the lie that you're behind. You're not behind, you're becoming. And becoming doesn't follow a schedule. It doesn't need permission. It only asks for your presence, for you to be here, fully engaged with where you are, even if it's not where you thought you'd be. When you embrace the journey, you stop comparing paths. You understand that no two lives are meant to look the same. You stop envying someone else's chapter 20 when you're still writing chapter 4. You start to honor your own path with all its unique twists and turns. And in doing so, you liberate yourself from the pressure to arrive, because you realize that you've already arrived. You're in it. The becoming, the unfolding, the raw, beautiful now. That is the experience you once prayed for. It just doesn't look the way you thought it would. It looks real. It looks alive. It looks like you, in motion, learning to walk in alignment with your truth. Winning isn't about reaching a final point where everything is perfect. It's about learning to live with depth, to move with meaning, to keep going, not because you're chasing a number, but because you're honoring your growth. The scoreboard can't reflect the quiet discipline of consistency. It can't measure the strength it takes to remain soft in a hard world. It can't quantify the courage it takes to start again after failure. Those are internal wins, and the more you begin to value those, the less you'll need external validation to feel successful. You'll carry your worth with you, not as a result of what you've achieved, but as a reflection of who you've become through the journey itself. The art of winning has nothing to do with domination, competition, or chasing a version of success handed to you by the world. It is about remembering who you are before the noise told you otherwise. It's not about proving your worth through outcomes, but owning it through presence. Winning begins within, in the quiet place where you choose to show up for yourself, even when no one is watching. It deepens when you detach from the obsession with results and align your actions with purpose, trusting that the right things will come when you move from truth, not pressure. You shift from force to flow, not by giving up, but by surrendering the false belief that more effort equals more worth. You start to walk with ease, even through resistance, because you've stopped fighting your own nature. And most of all, you embrace the journey for what it is. Not a race, not a scoreboard, but a sacred unfolding. Every moment, every challenge, every quiet victory becomes part of a deeper becoming. You don't wait to win, you live as one who already has, simply by being true to your path